The St. Martinsville Jane Doe, 1981. Identified as Michelle Oakes. It's believed that Michelle purposely stepped in front of traffic in 1981 in St. Martinsdale, Louisiana. Those investigating believed she wasn't from the United States and that she was rather from a European country, or was at least of French descent in Canada. None of this was correct, however. A trucker would come forward to say that he remembered encountering her at one point, seeing a story about the Jane Doe on the 10th anniversary of her being found. He came forward to say he remembered seeing her, and he remembered giving her a ride. It would later be confirmed that he had, in fact, given Michelle a ride. He had dropped her off in Louisiana, saying she accidentally left her purse behind, although no identification was mentioned as being inside. He said he bought her lunch and gave her $10. They did know she had at least one child, as she had a huge C-section scar. If they followed the lead of a child being left behind, it's not mentioned, though. One amazing aspect of many of these stories is the way that the unidentified affect those around them. Some are ignored and forgotten, sometimes not even buried. But in other cases, people do all that they can to embrace somebody who deserves to be buried respectfully and remembered, even if they don't have her name. In the case of Michelle, 2 local residents named Lester Goudry and Sophie Cormier agreed to act as her mother and father. And that they did, looking after her grave for the following years until they themselves passed away. To them, she mattered. Residents also donated funds for a funeral, a plot, her burial, and a marker. It turns out that Michelle was 26 when she passed away. All her daughter knew was one day her mom didn't come home. It turns out that Michelle was in fact from the U.S. She was a Maine native who struggled a lot with how she controlled her life, moving from Maine to Louisiana, her small daughter in tow. But this, unfortunately, just isolated the young daughter, putting her in risky situations even after her mother disappeared, situations that young girl still remembers to this day. Unfortunately, only one person appeared to know at the time that Michelle was missing, and that person was Michelle's friend. While Michelle's friend raised Angie, it appears she didn't report the mother missing. There's no indication of just how well she was taken care of. Perhaps she didn't want the young girl taken from her. But based on Michelle's life, it's possible it wasn't good. It appears the friend left behind did the best she could, continuing to raise Angie until a few years later, a state agency was alerted to the case of the young woman. However this happened, they did eventually send her back to her aunt and uncle in Maine. It's one of those things that isn't often covered in the press, though I try to include it when I can. The kids left behind and what happened to them matters. And it's great to be able to say that Angie said she had a great life, and her home with her aunt and uncle was filled with love. She went on to marry and have kids of her own, and she's now a grandmother herself. But she says she has an underlying need to know what happened to her mom. While notifications were sent out to multiple states at the time, she went unidentified. It took 40 years, but a recreation made of Michelle finally gave her name back, and this is because her daughter kept looking. Her daughter eventually identified the picture from 1,700 miles away. And with this, Michelle finally had her name, and most especially her daughter Angie finally knew her mother's fate.
But the question for Angie still lingered. What happened to my mom? Meanwhile, officials in Louisiana were working to find the identity of Jane Doe. After DNA work and a facial reconstruction process, the sheriff's office in Louisiana released this photo 5 years ago.
I knew it was her. I knew instantly that I said, that's my mom.
This past February, DNA tests were done to confirm that Jane Doe was Angie's mom.
She said that after the identification, there was a huge sigh of relief, and she was able to hang up the phone, finally knowing her seemingly endless journey was over. Michelle went unidentified for 40 years. Dorothy Harrison of Wichita, Kansas. Dorothy was last seen about 5 p.m. on July 25, 1984. when she left her home in Wichita, Kansas. One of her siblings saw her get into a vehicle that was described as big, tan, and long. She got into the front seat with a white female and a black female. Both were older than Dorothy, which wasn't hard to do since Dorothy was only 16. Shortly after she disappeared, she was reported missing by her family. The problem being Dorothy was a habitual runaway, and so no one ever really expected this to be any different from the other times. Dorothy would leave, be gone for a few weeks, and then her family would find her back home. Each time this happened, she stayed near home in Kansas. A month later, in August of 1984, Dorothy called home, telling her family she was in Los Angeles. The following month, September of 1984, she called again, and this time she was located in El Paso, Texas. On this occasion, she told her family that she'd had enough, and she was coming home. This was the last time anyone heard from her. Even more complicated, trying to figure out where she may have disappeared from. She could have been anywhere between a home and El Paso, and this led to 37 years of pain and questions. The authorities believe Dorothy's life was taken between September 10, 1984 and January 10, 1985. It's highly likely because of her past behavior that she was heading home like she had told her parents. Dorothy was found on a road leading to Hatch, New Mexico, in March of 1985 by hunters who happened to find her scattered remains, many of which were located beneath black plastic. Her life had been taken 3 to 6 months prior. It was a remote area of desert, though both hunters and ranchers were known to pass randomly through there quite often. Decade after decade, they would compare her DNA to other missing women, ruling out 33 other people as being this Jane Doe. They knew she had brown hair, and she'd suffered a healed injury to the right side of her nose. She also had a small scar on her mouth. It was her DNA in the end that would solve the mystery, discovering she was in fact Dorothy Harrison of Wichita, Kansas. They have no idea who took her life, and it's extremely important anyone who encountered her at this time come forward to relay her movements. Please call the number on your screen or submit the information anonymously through Crime Stoppers. Her family released this statement. Dorothy was a typical teenager. She was only 16 when this horrific crime happened. Like most teens, she was sometimes unhappy at home and easily influenced. She left home with some people she thought were her friends, and we never saw her again. The news of her death is devastating. And even though this crime happened over 30 years ago, to our family, it's new and extremely difficult information to process. We have so many unanswered questions and are hopeful we'll be able to provide some of those answers. Dorothy Harrison went unidentified for 16 years. Thank you everybody for watching and listening. If you could help to get the channel noticed by the YouTube algorithm by liking and leaving a comment, even if you can just leave a thumbs up or some emoji, it counts as engagement. It would be so appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks everyone. Take care of yourselves and each other.